This is Maurice Jones-Drew, and you're listening to the What's Bruin Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA, fight.
You're listening to the What's Bruin Show, part of the What's Bruin Show Network, with your hosts, Jake Merrifield, Bill Shirley, Jamaal Artis, and Mike Regalado, bringing you anything and everything UCLA sports. And now, it's time for the What's Bruin Show.
Hello and welcome to What's Bruin. I'm your host, Jake Merrifield, and in a few minutes, I'm going to go to a post-game I recorded about a half hour ago when I was over at Bill Shirley's house. Of course, he went to the game with me, and there's going to be an extra bonus episode of the BJ edition on your feed if you're a subscriber on Patreon or on the Substack.
Welcome to the BJ edition.
And that'll be us talking about the game before the game, heading to the Rose Bowl. But me and Bill recorded a post-game, and it's a good 20 minutes or so. But I had a couple thoughts on my way home from his house as well. And I wanted to do a proper intro for the show and play, sometimes hard to be a Bruin, because absolutely it is sometimes hard to be a Bruin. But with that being said, it's the What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network. Thank you very much for listening to this WB2, the game review. UCLA's lost to Minnesota, 21-17. They lose as Minnesota scores in the last minute of play. It's What's Bruin Show on the What's Bruin Show Network, at What's Bruin Show on Twitter. Thank you very much. What's Bruin Show at gmail.com on the email. what'sbruin.substack.com or patreon.com/What's Bruin Show, or just what'sbruinshow.com on the Substack and Patreon for just a couple bucks a month.
$2.
You can support the show, and we appreciate your support. Even if you don't support the show monetarily, please subscribe on all the different things that you see the What's Bruin Show on. That would help us tremendously. Thank you very much. You can also search the show on YouTube, What's Bruin Show. Just search that and then look for the Bruin, the UCLA-themed Bruin, What's Bruin Show, and you'll find it there, along with a slideshow, going along to the slideshow, the audio from this on there. And there's a merchandise site, mylocker.net site, down in the show notes. And you can call the hotline, 805-399-4WBS. Sugar Reign of Troy, they lost today too. Yippee for us and them. It's a double loss for the LA schools, and both in kind of tragic fashion. Both. We kind of talk about the different weight classes in the Big Ten. Minnesota certainly was in a higher weight class than UCLA this year, but the teams on the field looked extremely competitive with each other, and yet Minnesota comes out on top. And then you'd have to say that USC was punching, maybe a little bit above their weight against number 5 Penn State after falling out of the top 25. But they were certainly in that game. They were bleeding the game big and then came from ahead to lose. So heartbreak all across the city this week. It didn't have to be for the Bruins, but it was. But anyways, call the hotline. We'll play your thoughts on the next show on Tuesday, and we'll go from there. So anywho, let's, sing it if you know it. Sometimes it is absolutely hard to be a Bruin, and this certainly was a sometimes hard to be a Bruin night.
Sometimes it's hard to be a Bruin. Giving all your love to just one team.
So, it's funny. This was a sometimes hard to be a Bruin game, but it's in a completely different way in my mind than some of these other games, because this is a game that the Bruins had for the taking, and then they end up not taking it at the end. But as far as I'm concerned, they outplayed Minnesota for the good chunk of this game. And Bill and I will talk about that in a few minutes when we get to what we recorded over at his house. But just thinking about how this game came down the stretch, it occurred to me that the Bruins outgained Minnesota by a whole lot, by 100 yards. But for the, first half of the third quarter, or basically the third quarter, they were the better team through much of this game. Neither team could run the ball very well because both teams played pretty effective defense there. The Bruins committed way too many penalties. I think Bill called it like 9 for 100. It ended up being 10 for 105. And a couple of those penalties were kind of bullshit, but, still they were, the over-penalized team. First downs, the Bruins managed 17 of them, 6 for 13 on third down, which is not bad and actually very good compared to what they've been the rest of the season. But still, just so few plays in this game for the Bruins. They come into this game averaging like 55 plays per game on offense, and in this game they only get to 60-ish. And sadly, this is one of their more successful offensive games this season, right? 17 points is their season high. I want to say 3 and 29 total yards is probably very close to their season high. Actually, let me check that. Let's see. No, 329 yards blows away their previous high of 281 yards against LSU. It's just so depressing. And let's see, like the 5 and some change yards per play, 5.3 yards per play, is their second highest total of the season. They averaged 5.9 against Hawaii. So, offensively, it's not a great game. It's not a good game. They scored 17 points. That's still subpar. But sadly, this is one of their better offensive performances. Ethan Garbers, he had 3 picks. I think you can only hold one of them really against him, though. The last one at the end of the game, that doesn't count. The first one was absolutely tipped. It's that one that me and Bill are going to talk about in the third quarter that really kind of scuttled them. But they lose the game in the third quarter with that 0 for 14 they put up. In the coming out of halftime, but down the stretch too, they had opportunities. I kind of make the point in a few minutes that this is one of those games where at the end it's just kind of like whoever's got the ball last, even though it's not really a shootout. It's just kind of whoever's got the ball last kind of thing. But UCLA certainly could have put themselves in better position coming down the stretch of the game. And if they take kind of a gamble on the fourth and 1 play, they could just kind of milk the clock out, right? Or even if they turn the ball over at that point and they give Purdue the ball, deep in their territory, there's enough time. You have the timeouts. You probably can end up with some more time to run a final drive instead of a scatter shot kind of, 30 seconds to go and you got to get all the way down the field sort of drive. So I don't know. I wouldn't have been mad at them if they go on 4th and 1. Even if they punt, you wish they could manage the clock a little better to get a little more time on the clock. But that last sequence isn't where they lose the game. They lose the game in the third quarter, and I think that's where most of the ire should be felt. You see coaches all across the country botch the end game stuff because in the moment, it's easy to look at your little chart and make your calls, but sometimes it doesn't fit that exactly. And end of game pressure and end of game situation, especially for a brand new coach, some of that to me is, if it's not excusable, it's understandable. But where you really lose the game is where you give up your 10-0 lead on 4 drives and end up trailing the game, 14-10 and being in kind of a dogfight from that point forward. So it's not great how the game ended, how they managed the game. They could have iced the game if they convert a 4th and 1 deep in their territory, but they don't. And I think that's a call that, you could have, either one of them is defensible, either one of them is justifiable. I'm not horribly upset at what they chose to do, but obviously then, you give a big opportunity for Minnesota to drive the field. So you'd wish they could have ended up with a little more time on the clock for Ethan Garbers to have a chance to get down the field. Obviously he has to score a touchdown now because they're down by 4. So that, the odds of that are still fairly low, especially you look at, it wasn't exactly a high-powered offense, through most of the game, and they're not going to get a play-action fake to J. Michael Sturdivant open down the sideline in the last couple minutes of the game. That won't be there because they won't be playing that sort of defense. So really, am I that upset that they didn't give themselves an opportunity to drive the field for a game-winning touchdown with a minute left as opposed to 30 seconds left? Not really, because I think the game was lost as soon as you give up the touchdown. So that's kind of where I stand on that. But with that being said, I've talked enough. Your calls will be on the next show. And here is me and Bill with our thoughts fresh after making it back to the Shirley household right after the game. Thank you, and go Bruins, I guess. Welcome to What's Brewing. I'm your host, Jake Merrifield. I'm joined by a very special guest of the show.
Yes.
Former host, William Henry Shirley III. And we're sitting in the Shirley household at the table. One of the original tables
That's right. This is where it started, guys.
at the What's Brewing started on, yeah.
Yes.
When we still did the rotation.
We did.
Remember the rotation where it'd be at my house
Oh, then Mike's.
and then your house, and then we'd both be like, Mother F, we have to
we
go
have
to
to go
Mike's.
all the way out to Mike.
It's because me and you live 5 minutes away, and then Mike has always lived an hour away. No matter where he's lived, it's
I
always
was
been
like,
like
we
an
have to
hour.
be fair, though. We have to be
We
fair.
have to be fair
But we were
until
like,
we weren't. Until we didn't have to be.
until Jake
We had
said,
to be fair until we
"Screw
didn't have to
you."
be. And then when I basically took over production of the What's Brewing Show, I was like, we ain't going nowhere. I'm not even going to Bill's house anymore.
Not exactly.
Anywho. So, Bill, we're coming to you just moments after UCLA football's latest disaster. They lose a game to the Minnesota Golden Gophers, 21-17.
Yeah.
It's a game in which the Bruins led 10-0. They come out and have one of their
awesome-
better halves of the year.
An awesome half.
Certainly the best half of football they played at the Rose Bowl this year.
Yes.
And then they come out in the second half, and very characteristically for UCLA teams this year, they absolutely fold in the third quarter. And
They clawed back in the fourth, but yes, the third quarter is literally the reason why they lost.
don't get me wrong, they did claw back, and they turned this into, and this became a game where it was like, this wasn't a shootout, quote unquote shootout, where it's like the last team with the ball wins.
Yeah.
But it was a game where the last team with the ball wins, kind of.
Yeah.
In a non-shootout. Right. Yeah. And so they got into a ball game, and Minnesota and Goofy McGoofy on the sideline for Minnesota plays
PJ and Fleck.
field position down to the end of the game, and it works for them, and they edge out a close one. The Bruin defense gave up 0 points when Minnesota had to drive the field, and they gave up 21 points when Minnesota had a shorter field. Now, 2 of those were at midfield, and the last one was a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
I think they had the ball at the 40-yard line or something.
Yeah.
But that really was the story of the game for the UCLA defense. I'm going to cut them some slack on the last touchdown just because, we've seen that happen over and over again to all sorts of teams.
Yeah.
And it's one where, you'd love it if they could have made that stop. That, to me, was the drive that Minnesota played the best on as far as, like, giving credit to Minnesota and not taking away from UCLA's defense. I would give it to them on that one. Those other 2 touchdown drives in the third quarter
Or handed to them. They
were handed to them by the UCLA offense.
It was horrible.
Then,
It was
so
horrible. I think the whole crux of this game was the third quarter. That should honestly be, and I'm sure you're going to talk about it on your post game show.
well, I mean, if I feel like doing one after we're done doing this one, I mean, honestly, but yes,
But it's the third quarter. The first half was I shouldn't say I'm not awesome, but for this year's standards, I'm going to say it. Yeah, for this year's standards, the first half was awesome, right?
it absolutely was awesome.
Yeah.
You know why it was awesome, Bill? Because they were 50% on third down. They were almost 50% on third down at the end of the game, but not quite. 50% on third down. They had 10 whole rushing yards.
Yeah.
That's something to not sneeze at, gee whiz. 161 passing yards, 171 total yards, but more importantly, they put up 10 whopping points. They also threw a touchdown in the red zone again.
Yes.
I mean, threw an interception. In the red zone
Interception.
again. But yeah,
Very frustrating interception.
but they go
he
into
had
halftime 10-0.
He being Garbers had 3 interceptions.
The last one I'm not going to count against him.
Yeah, that's just
And one was off a tip. He had one really bad interception
Just a tip.
that had you asking for Justin Martin. In the third quarter.
No. Let's do that again. It had
Many people.
many people around us going, "Bring in Justin Martin, bring him in."
Well, the one kind of douchey guy that was behind us in the first half, he was like, Garbers that threw an incomplete pass, like, bring it Justin Martin.
Yeah.
That guy I thought was a little unreasonable.
yeah. But
But-
by the that's after that second interception, it's like,
Well, and now we're that
but
second
either way,
interception was really bad.
look, they stuck with them fine. They took the lead in the fourth quarter. Great. It was just a very it showed a lack of discipline to have, correct me if I'm wrong, 9 penalties for 100 yards. Am I correct? 9 penalties for 100 yards. Are you kidding? That's the game. That is the difference in the game right there.
It really was, especially when Minnesota wasn't getting like any penalties beyond a
Yes.
sideline violation.
I would love to see how much PJ Fleck paid these refs before. No, I'm just playing. But the point is, it was very frustrating. It seemed like the calls were lopsided. But then you could say, no, some of these things were lack of discipline. So,
But if you look at the pattern UCLA shown this year, too. It's like coming out of the half, they have gotten murdered in the majority of their opening, third quarter minutes. LSU, they come out of the half tied in that game after a valiant effort in the first half. They they go into the locker room with getting a standing ovation from the fans who went on that trip.
Yeah.
Right. And they come out of the locker room and just get murdered. I mentioned this last week, but they actually had a drive that was productive. They got all the way down into the red zone or almost to the red zone for them against LSU, and then they go backwards like 40 yards. Just so terrible. But the bottom line is the results are they've gotten outscored by 1,000,000 points in the third quarter in a lot of these games. Same thing happened against tonight, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you can't. That's really where the
how do you change that?
That's where
Let
the
me
game.
ask you that.
That's
how do you
the game was
change
lost.
that, in your opinion? How the hell do you change that? I don't know if it's not a culture, but it's a trend right now, Jake. With freaking 5, how many games now? 5?
Yeah. Well, it's funny though too because Leo asked the question. We saw Leo at the Rose Bowl. You want to say hi again to Leo?
Hello,
He's
Leo.
He's gonna be listening to this on his treadmill or something.
Are you sure?
He is. Yeah. He's wishing that Mike was talking, but it's just me and you. So,
yes. I don't think he cares about our hellos. I think
he really
just
does.
cares about
he really
Mike's.
Cares about Mike's. But anywho, he was asking about adjustments last week, and I was like, well, I'm kind of on the fence on it because LSU is more a player execution thing, but this last game, absolutely, the Penn State game, they got killed. Didn't they get killed? Come out of half, I believe they did. So I was kind of on the fence, but now this game, it's like, no, this is another one where it's just been very, very bad. Horrible. But yeah, I mean, just I don't know. We already said it, but the game really was lost in the third quarter. They come out, they have a 3-and-out, give up a touchdown, throw an interception, give up a touchdown, give up the lead, and all of a sudden you're in a dogfight the rest of the game. And by the way, there was some moments where they showed some fight. The touchdown to J. Michael Sturdivant off of play action, thank you, which, I made a note last week on the show that UCLA has the least amount of play action in their repertoire of the entire Big Ten, which is inexplicable to me. It's inexplicable to me.
This isn't how are we?
They can only run the ball for 35 yards.
How is this acceptable to anybody? And of course, the coach was, well, this is not acceptable. There's just no way that I would. Jake, what do you think? 70% of the team is the same team from last year.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
roughly,
more,
maybe
right,
more.
right around there,
especially in the offense.
Yeah, and last year they were running left and right. Now they can't run not even 100 yards for an entire game. This is insane. This is on the coaching staff to get this right, and I'm very frustrated. And I was venting on the way to the game, but it's frustrating to see this. It's frustrating to have Jake. We left the game a little early,
yeah,
but we were listening to it on the way home,
watching on the TV and listening to the broadcast,
watching it on the phone and listening to it, and it was like, oh my God, there's a chance we can win. We looked at each other like, oh, that's pretty good.
Took the lead,
and it just sort of it just crumbled right in front of us. And it's so frustrating that even now I still get invested, and it's frustrating to see that kind of ending.
Yeah, but I don't know. Tell me if this is fair though, because I'm not really upset about the fourth quarter of the game and how that played out. It was kind of just the way field position worked in the game, and the Bruins had a chance to ice the game if
they got a first
Matavao
down.
Gets the first down on that play. He needs 13, he gets 12, right, or whatever it was, or he gets to the 13 and you need to get to the 14 or whatever that was. They get that. Then they're in good position to win the game. They don't, and so then it gives Minnesota a chance. And then, like I said, on a 2-minute drill sort of drive, it's a coin flip on those, and they lose the coin flip, right?
Yes, they did.
It doesn't help that they give up a 50-yard play right off the bat on that, or a 30, 40-yard play, but stuff like that is going to happen if you come down to a one-possession game. This shouldn't have been a one-possession game at that point.
No.
Or at least they should have had a bigger lead than the 3 points, because for the majority of this game, I think they outplayed Minnesota.
Yes. That's what's so frustrating.
But when they were bad, they were so bad that they gave up 14 points.
J. Mike had probably his best game of the year.
Not probably, absolutely. He exceeded his entire season total in this one game.
They made a concerted
doubled
effort to include him in this one. Yeah. I like the dinks and dunks. I like the screens. They started doing more screens. I like the screens.
They had one bubble screen. I was thrilled. They had a couple screens. I was thrilled. And TJ Harden had his best play of the game of the season.
On a screen.
Of a hard-running screen.
So it's just one of those things where it's just frustrating. It's like you can see slivers of hope, and then it just goes back. It's like one step forward, 2 steps back.
But so let me ask you, looking at this offensive game plan today, looking, with Garber's under center, with looking at last week with Justin Martin under center, and everybody made a big deal about, how much better this was. This game plan today, for the most part, seemed to me much more similar to the Penn State game than the 4 games before that.
True.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm not altogether upset with how Garber's executed it through most of the game, although I thought when they got bogged down in the third quarter, they were going back to a lot of this longer developing stuff. Like there was a sequence where they had 2 plays in a row where they're looking for a deep throw down the field, and
it's like, no,
that's when he ends up getting pressure and getting hit. I didn't like that stuff. But going forward through the season, like they actually looked like I don't want to say competent, but like almost competent football team for stretches of this game, which we couldn't say before, right?
Yeah. Correct. You couldn't say that before, but
so gee whiz, that's the standard we're getting to. Hey, Tards, we almost have a competent football team for 3/4 of the game. How does that make you feel? She just said she's going to watch the British Baking Show. Yeah,
which is a great show, guys.
So that's the thing, though. It's like if they could have ground out this win, then I look at the rest of the season. I say, well, we were having this discussion in the car on the way, or like right after the game. But I look at the rest of the season. I'm like, well, the rest of these games are close to coin flips, even if they're going to be underdogs.
And I disagreed with you.
I know you disagree with me, but like, I don't think you really disagree with me. We were kind of arguing the same thing, only in different ways. But now that they've lost this game, now it's not going to really get any easier going to Rutgers across the country. Although I don't think Rutgers is a much better team than Minnesota, if at all.
They're going to lose that game.
But they're on the road in that game. I would say that I still feel like they could win the Rutgers game. If they play like they play today, they'll have a chance to be in that game. So I'm saying there's a chance. But then the Iowa game, I really think that's going to be a rough game for them at the Rose Bowl.
No way in hell.
At Washington, I think it's going to be a rough game for them.
No, yeah.
You'd like to say that USC is, it's a rivalry game and all that stuff, and they'll have a chance in that game. But the way both teams have played, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do they have that's going to exploit what SC is bad at? No, I think D'Anton Lynn is going to be able to shut this offense down pretty well, it seems like to me. So you're going to have to win the game 3-0 or something? I don't think that's happening. And then you have Fresno State. So it's like, if they had won this game, you could talk me into I don't know. How do you feel about the prospects for the rest of the year, given how this game went?
Well, before the game,
I don't want to do all the talking.
Well, I said before the game, I thought maybe 3, right? But now I'm saying 2 max. You're still saying 3. I'm saying 2. I say the only other team they have maybe a shot with is maybe Fresno. That's it. No other team. I'll put money on that one. There's no other team that they're going to win.
You will put money on that one?
I'll put money on that. There's no way that
How much do you want to bet me they don't win another game before Fresno State?
That's what I believe, though. I believe they're not going to win a game.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like how much you say you're going to put money on it?
Suzanne said they're not going to. Suzanne says they're not winning
So, Bill, how much money would you put on it? We've already established,
$25 that's big money.
That is big money.
$25 that they don't. What did I say? They're not going to win another game. Yeah,
until Fresno State, at least.
Until Fresno State.
Okay. And
even then, I'm not saying this is guaranteed.
Well, yeah, I think right now, if you look at the schedule going down the line, it's sad to say, but the ceiling for this team, even though I think they've played better in the last 2 games, the ceiling for this game is like 3 right now. And that's they beat Fresno State and they manage a win in one of these other 4 Big Ten contests.
They're going to be 0 and blank in the Big Ten.
Well, I think that's what the odds say they are going to be.
Yeah.
But, and by the way, Purdue just took Illinois to the wire and put up 49 points.
And still lost.
So the argument about who's the worst team in the Big Ten once again is being settled by UCLA.
Because why? Jake, we talked about in the car. 49 points. UCLA has scored over, 670 now for 5 games?
6 games.
6 games. 6 games, right? And
they raised their average.
And Purdue
they're up to like 14 points a game now,
Purdue
Bill.
did 49 in 1 game.
It's
God
ridiculous.
help us.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the ceiling, Bill's ceiling is 2, mine is 3. I wouldn't be surprised with a 1
No.
at all, and I think that the over/under would have to be like 1.5.
Yeah.
Like, because by no means is Fresno State guaranteed,
Hell no.
especially by the time you get to the 1 in 10 that you're going to be, or the 1 in 11,
Yeah.
the 1 in 10.
You have to think about the attitude of the team. Are
Yeah,
they
I
even
mean, how many
willing
times
to
have we
fight?
seen them go into the last game? See, like, depending on how the SC game goes, they get throttled by SC.
It's just going to be.
There's not how could there be any
the
buy-in?
worst. And what are they going? They're going to put lipstick on this pig at the end of the year. German's going to put some stupid lipstick like, oh, we're going to give him a shot. We're going to see how the second year builds. It's baloney. Like, you can see it. Like, if you take a step back, you can. It's not hard to see where this is going wrong. It's not the defense, guys. It's the offense. It is the offense, and it's not hard to see. And it's not like there's not a track record of this guy failing at other places when he is in charge, not when he's under.
You're talking about Eric Bieniemy. EB's BO.
Yeah.
His time as offensive coordinator in college
has
and
been
his
horrendous.
time offensive coordinator in Washington. Yada yada yada. Yes, we've talked about that a lot.
Frustrating.
And yeah. So outside of, is there anything other than having an entirely new offensive coordinator and system next year that you think could allow this team to?
No, because you're also
have some sort of improvement.
Jake,
by the way, they're going to lose a lot of guys going into next year too.
exactly. They're going to lose a lot of guys, and there's not going to be money to get new guys. There's not. Who in their right mind is going to be like, oh, I like the way this is going. I like the trajectory of this team. Let me give them X $100,000. Are you out of your mind? I tell you right now, their NIL is going to go just for football. Basketball is just fine. But for football, the NIL is going to be pretty darn sparse. That's my opinion.
Well,
as Jake likes to tell me, Bill, you don't give anything, so how can you? Fine, Jake, are you going to give a lot more next year?
I'm definitely not giving more. I'm definitely not giving more.
Jeez.
I'm definitely not giving more.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. That's the problem for me is like you kind of grind out this win. You have a chance to grind out a win against Rutgers, and then you have something that you can kind of sell.
You can't sell anything.
You can't sell
You
one
can't
in
sell
1 in 11.
anything with
You
this
can't sell.
offense.
Yeah.
You can't, like, what could you sell? So Jake, like you're saying, hey, the offense has gotten a little bit better. If it was like, instead of a little bit better, you're like, oh wow, they went from, even if they were still losing, but it went from 14-point average to now 26, 28-point average. You're seeing people flying around more, and like the offense is clicking. Even they just still haven't gotten over the hump, but you see it getting better. That is something to build off of. Like, hey, we started here and we ended here at a much better offensive clip. That's not happening. This is their big improvement went from what, 14 or 13 to 17 in one game?
Twice this year, they've got to 17 points.
That's insane. That is
twice
insane.
this year. 3 times this year, they got to 13.
So how, as a player, like what do you sell?
Once they got to 11.
What do you sell on that? And then
I don't know, because you look at the players and it's like, I've seen these players do a lot better things than this.
It's
That's
not
the
new
problem.
players.
That's the problem.
That's the hard part.
But then a lot of these players aren't going to be there next year.
Yes.
So who are the new players going to be?
And who wants to come or who's going to pay for that? This is what, just like you're sitting there going, this is an end game I don't want, that you already know. You already know the end game. You already know what's going to happen. Yet we're going to still go down this road. It's like, let's turn around as soon as possible.
I just think you have to cut your losses with Bieniemy.
Yes, you do.
You have to.
You have to. And if he
so let's speculate here. Like, coming into next year, barring some weird recruiting coup or something like that, what could you possibly do to give some sort of hope? That's it, right?
You would
no
give
other move.
Because the defense isn't the issue. You would give hope with, hey, we got this new hot offensive coordinator. He did blah 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 at this school. We got him over here. Really think it's gonna do well and really fit the players. And you might get some players, and you might get some donors back.
Yeah, and the only thing you got that's something that you can sell that wasn't there before last week is if you can keep Justin Martin in the program. If you at least can point to, Garber's not playing beyond this year, so then you have a guy that might be able to be a decent quarterback.
Yeah.
Although we've only seen him manufacture 11 points on the road to Penn State. But that's something like, but can you imagine going the off season?
With him, with Eric Bieniemy, again
Yeah.
going, hey, this
go
is
through
what
the
we're
whole
gonna do?
thing all over again?
Are you?
There's no way. There's no way.
Those are UCLA's prospects right now. Those are the prospects. You got to click. Now, of course, you don't do it now. I don't. It is the situation is sort of, I don't think you have to do it now. I think at the end of the season, this didn't work. But I don't think. I think I'm in the minority for that. I think there's a good chance Eric Bieniemy stays.
I think, and that's the problem
That's
that I
the
have.
scary part.
Like just sitting in the stands through the games that I have, you listen to like the Joe Schmo fan that doesn't really pay attention to anything, but they're there at the game, which there's not that many of them, I guess. But you hear a lot of, boy, they should be able to, be really good on offense because they have Eric Bieniemy. Like people are still saying that.
Because
And oh my gosh, Deshaun Foster sucks, and oh my gosh, Ethan Garbers is terrible. But why aren't they very good? Because they have Eric Bieniemy, like his reputation. Like I don't know, I want to do a total character assassination here, but it's like
guys,
connect the freaking dots, guys.
Yeah, nothing's changed except the offense, guys.
Yeah. I don't know.
What do you do?
All right. Well, Bill, thank you for welcoming me into your house.
Yes.
They're going on the road to Rutgers.
Yeah.
I still think that, if they played the game they played tonight, I think they'll be in the game. And if they're in the game, chances are they could have a finish like Minnesota had today, where they have the ball last and they have the field position and they are able to manufacture something.
Ifs.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying at this point, what else can you really ask for?
That's true.
I still think that that's a game where they could and should, even as bad as they're playing and as bad as they are playing, that's a game where they should be in the game at the end.
Yeah.
I don't have that feeling about Iowa, and I have a harder time feeling that against Washington, even though Washington got throttled today by Iowa.
By Iowa, 40 to something. Or
Yeah,
10
I think Washington's been playing a lot better, and they just had a bad game today, but whatever. So, maybe things change if they get in the win column next week against Rutgers, and you can point to something else, development or whatever, But at this point, it doesn't seem like.
Nope.
I know Bill, he's just shaking his head no. But we don't know until, they still got to go play the game, Bill.
Yeah.
Are you going to watch the game?
I might. I don't know. I don't know what's going. When is it? Next weekend or is it a bye?
It's next weekend. I think it's next weekend.
I don't think
It's got to be next week.
I don't think the boys have a tourney, so the answer is yes.
Yeah.
If the boys had a tourney, the answer would be.
You should come watch it at my house, Bill. Make you do 2 post games in a row.
I'll do it. No, that's good. I'm good.
How about you come over, Bill?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, anywho. Yeah, it is next weekend, the 19th. No time yet. And then after that, there's a bye week on the 26th. And then after that, on the 2nd, that's when they are at Nebraska. I totally forgot the Nebraska game.
Yeah.
Neglecting the Nebraska game.
That we're gonna get smoked. Like it's just come on, guys. We're good. We're good.
At Nebraska, then Iowa, hosting Iowa, then at Washington, then hosting SC.
So that's
and then
another 1, 2,
hosting
3, 4.
Fresno.
Yeah. So another win will be Fresno. I mean, a potential. Like today. Today was a potential. It would be like that.
I think they still have potential wins with Rutgers, Nebraska. I mean, theoretically Washington, but I don't buy it. And then Fresno State. But like I said, the ceiling for me is still like 3 at this point.
We'll see.
All right, man. Well, Bill, thank you for having me over here. Thanks for the whiskey.
No,
We're
thanks.
having
Thank you.
Black Saddle Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, 12 years.
12 years. It's nice.
It is nice. It's
Yes.
not bad at all.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really all we have to. Bill bought me some nice Hawaiian food
Yes.
on the way home. That
was good.
Thank you. And then we saw the twins and Suzanne, but now they've retired.
They have.
They didn't want to be on the show. But your calls will be on the show on Tuesday if anybody calls anymore. Me and Mike will be on the show on Tuesday, I guess. And
It was good seeing you in my KE tonight.
It was, and we got a good picture.
Yes,
the
that
picture
was
will
a
probably be on it's probably on your screen right now if you're listening on iTunes. But the Bruins lose again, 21-17 to the Fighting Row the Boaters. Such a shame.
It is.
They're 1-5 now. Is that what we are?
So, yeah.
I think it's 1-5. And yeah, here we are. So until next time, go Bruins, I guess, and
Later, guys.
God, ring the fucking bell.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
How bad is this? Be honest. Is this Windows Vista bad? It's not iPhone 4 bad, is it? Don't tell me this is Zoom bad.
I'm sorry. It's Apple Maps bad.
I lost my mojo.
Good evening.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
That was the What's Bruin Show.
Try us tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel.
It's gotta be in or out, Mom. In or out. Well, I need the door closed.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Dude, brah, we play some ball on the West Coast.
The final word is boob.